Are you interested in investing in residential real estate? If so, there's one more threat to your property value that didn't exist just a few years ago, but it's a big one. And you have companies like AirBnB, VRBO, HomeAway, and CraigsList to thank for it. I'm Bryan Ellis. I'll tell you all about it right now in episode 146.
You're listening to Self-Directed Investor Radio, America's only podcast exclusively for affluent, self-directed investors, where each day of the week you receive innovative investment strategy and deadly accurate market analysis that's untainted by Wall Street and unblemished by government propaganda, all in 7 minutes or less. Coming to you now from iTunes, Stitcher, and SDIRadio.com, here's your host, Bryan Ellis.
Hello, SDI Nation. Welcome to the podcast of record for savvy, self-directed investors like you. Imagine this. You've bought a great house in Austin, Texas, or Tuscaloosa, Alabama, or San Diego, California, or Tallahassee, Florida, or Boise, Idaho, or Seattle, Washington, or any of hundreds of other cities all over America. It's a good house in a good neighborhood. It's certainly a Class A property, the type of place that would be entirely suitable for you and your own family to live in. This is not a war zone. This is a place with walkable streets and obvious local pride. Your hopes are high. You're going to lease out that property, make a little cash flow, and build some equity. You're chasing financial freedom, and you're doing it in a very responsible way, except the phone isn't ringing. It seems that nobody wants to lease that property from you, and you just can't understand why. That's when you learn something interesting. The house next door to yours, and one several doors down also, they're listed on one of those services like Airbnb, VRBO, HomeAway, or, of course, CraigsList, that allows homeowners to rent out their properties on a very short-term basis. These services enable homeowners to begin running their own hotel service, essentially, right in their own home. That's the home that's in the same neighborhood as your property. No big deal, right? Well, that's right, except for one thing. Your property is located in a city that's a common vacation destination, or maybe it's home to a very popular college or pro football team, or maybe it's convenient to a huge venue where events are held on a regular basis like Madison Square Garden or the Georgia Dome or Staples Center. And because of that proximity, those short-term rental properties that are in the same neighborhood as your property are very, very popular. And because of the nature of the reason why people come to town, there's one common theme for those short-term visitors. They're coming to town to party. Hey, we all love a good party, no doubt about it, but there are limits, and when that party happens over and over again, disturbing the peace in your neighborhood and making your property undesirable to renters or buyers, then that translates into a very real problem, the potential for declining property values. My friends, this is a real phenomenon. The latest press coverage of it was this past Friday in the New York Times, and the coverage was not kind to those renting out their houses in this way. Clearly, Airbnb, who is maybe the biggest of the services who specialize in these short-term rentals, they recognize there's a problem. They've set up a neighbor hotline to call if there are problems, but the reality is there's simply not much that Airbnb and the other companies like them can do. But some local governments are taking a stab at it. For example, Austin, Texas, a very popular destination, tried to tackle the problem by stipulating that no more than 6 unrelated people could stay in any of those homes at any one time. But that effort was thwarted by short-term renters of these properties who had clearly been coached to tell local law enforcement that they weren't actually staying in the property, they're just visiting. And some others even claimed to be cousins or other distant relatives, thus technically satisfying the rule in a manner that couldn't easily be disproven by police. The net result in Austin? Regulation has done little to stem the tide of disrespect of neighbors by users of short-term rentals. To be certain, not every Airbnb or HomeAway client is a disrespectful partier. Far from it. But you know that it doesn't take too many nights of disturbed sleep for one to lose patience with this type of behavior, and quite justifiably so. What can we observe from this? One thing is that you should certainly investigate the locale where you're considering the purchase of property to see if there are any properties nearby that are offered as short-term rentals. Particularly problematic are the properties that are represented as suitable for 8 or more people. As the larger the group of people occupying the property, the more probable it is that the group is a traveling party. To my way of thinking, properties like these make other nearby properties less attractive than they'd otherwise be, and certainly demand additional caution. Another thing we can conclude is that more regulation is coming to address these issues. And reactionary regulation such as that spurred by issues like this short-term rental issue is usually poorly considered and has unintended side effects that are negative for the broader populace. You can be sure that such regulation will ultimately restrict the rights of reasonable homeowners as well, and not just those using their properties on a short-term basis. And clearly, that's a bad thing. Now, one solution I can think of to this is homeowners associations. I'm not a huge fan of homeowners associations because they're frequently controlled by people with less intellectual acuity and even less integrity than, well, I don't want to insult criminals or those with mental challenges, so let's just say they're frequently not the most high-quality people in the world who run homeowners associations. But this is a perfect place for a responsible homeowners association to take action. Most HOAs have quasi-governmental authority over the properties in their neighborhoods, usually including the right of foreclosure as a response to rules violations. And that's a very big stick to wield. Why not use that authority in a responsible way to solve this problem on a neighborhood-by-neighborhood basis? There, problem solved for a very large swath of residential properties in America. No need for more regulations. But bottom line, folks, don't overlook this issue. It's an easy piece of due diligence to perform, and it could be a really big factor in the desirability and thus the value of that piece of property in which you're considering investing. Like good old Ben Franklin told us, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you'd like a transcript of this show, text the word transcript to 33444 and I'll be happy to send it to you free of charge. My friends, I've got some really great investment opportunities coming up that I'll announce to you very soon, within 10 days actually, and you'll definitely want to know about these. May I remind you that when I had 19 great investment properties available 2 weeks ago, they all disappeared within a few days? And what I have to share with you within 10 days from now is just as spectacular as those, and maybe even more so. So, be prepared. Text the word Top Picks to 33444 to get on my early notification list. The word there is Top Picks, spelled TOPPICKS with no spaces. Text Top Picks to 33444 right now. And my friends, invest wisely today and live well forever.
Thank you for listening to Self-Directed Investor Radio with Bryan Ellis. Don't miss a single episode. Be sure to subscribe to Self-Directed Investor Radio right now on iTunes, on Stitcher, and at SDIRadio.com. Your feedback is always welcomed via email at feedback@SDIRadio.com. This show is for entertainment purposes only and is not intended as legal or professional advice for your situation. Content is the property of the Self-Directed Investor Society.